The chandeliers of Seattle's grandest hotel sparkled above the city's elite, but in the shadows of the ballroom, one girl stood alone. She was the deaf daughter of a billionaire woman, unnoticed, unspoken to, invisible. While laughter and clinking glasses surrounded her, no one bothered to reach her world of silence. And then, something happened. A stranger moved closer, his hands shaping words in sign language, and for the first time her eyes lit up. Who was this person who dared to see her when no one else would? How could a simple gesture shatter years of isolation? Why had everyone, including her powerful mother, failed to speak her language? And what would unfold now that someone finally had? The chandeliers of Seattle's Westwood Hotel scattered prismatic light over velvet gowns and tailored tuxedos, while a string quartet played in the corner. Waiters glided past with trays of champagne, and laughter rose like a tide from the city's most powerful and wealthy. But in the far corner, half hidden behind a marble column, Olivia Pierce stood perfectly still. 17 years old, her midnight blue dress shimmered under the lights, diamond studs catching the occasional flash from cameras aimed elsewhere. Her eyes scanned the moving lips and the animated gestures of the room. She caught fragments but not meaning. To the glittering crowd, she was invisible. She signed under her breath, fingers barely moving. Invisible again. A voice startled her, not spoken but signed back in fluid, graceful motions. Not to me. Olivia's head snapped up. Across from her stood Melanie Foster, 28, in a simple black cocktail dress that looked out of place amid the sequined luxury. Melanie's hands shaped the signs with practiced ease. Hello. I'm Melanie. What's your name? The mask fell from Olivia's face, replaced with raw, genuine surprise. Her fingers moved fast, trembling with sudden energy. Olivia. You know ASL? Interpreter. Melanie signed, a quick smile lifting her lips. Children's Hospital. Freelance. Tonight I'm here just in case. Olivia's eyes softened into something like relief. She leaned closer, her signing sharp with sarcasm. In case. No one here even notices I exist. Melanie's hands moved back. Well, I notice. Olivia's laugh was soundless but contagious, her shoulders relaxing as though a heavy weight had been lifted. God, yes. Do you know how long I've been standing here watching lips move? Do you know how many people ask if I can read lips, then exaggerate everything like I'm 5? Or worse, they shout because apparently deaf also means stupid. Melanie chuckled, nodding. Or they talk to whoever is standing next to you instead of you, right? Olivia rolled her eyes so hard it was theatrical. Exactly. You get it? For the first time that night, her hands flew with speed, telling Melanie about school, about how the hearing kids thought she was stuck up, and the deaf kids thought she was privileged. About her art. About her mother, a pianist, and how music once filled their home until silence swallowed it. Melanie listened. Really listened. And in Olivia's brightening eyes, she saw not a billionaire's daughter, not a girl isolated by privilege, but a teenager starved for conversation that didn't reduce her to her disability. Then a ripple surged through the crowd. Flashbulbs erupted at the ballroom doors. Jackson Pierce had arrived. The billionaire, Olivia's father. Tall, silver at the temples, charisma radiating like heat from a flame. Donors pressed forward, eager to bask in his aura. Everyone surged toward him. Everyone except Olivia. She watched him, pride tangled with resignation. He didn't look at her. Not once. Olivia signed bitterly, see? Invisible. Melanie glanced at the girl, then at the man commanding the room. And for the first time that evening she felt anger ignite. The noise in the ballroom swelled as Jackson Pierce waded into the crowd, his presence magnetic, drawing donors and reporters like bees to honey. Cameras popped, laughter rose, champagne flutes clinked in celebration. But near the column, where the chandelier's glow softened into shadow, the world felt smaller, more private. Olivia's fingers twitched nervously, watching her father shake hands with men twice his age who grinned as if his success somehow belonged to them too. Melanie leaned closer, catching Olivia's eye. She signed gently, want to disappear? Olivia blinked, then smirked, her hands moving quick and sly. Already invisible. Melanie's lips curled. Not to me. You look bored out of your mind. Olivia laughed silently, her shoulders shaking. You're right. This is the annual game. Who can ignore me the longest? Spoiler, everyone wins. Melanie tilted her head, studying her. Doesn't it bother you? Olivia's hands slowed. It used to. Now I just pretend I'm furniture. The word struck Melanie like a blow. Furniture. A girl in $1,000 dress reduced to an ornament, standing perfectly still while life moved on without her. She shook her head. You're too sharp to be furniture. Olivia's eyes gleamed, testing her. Sharp? Like a knife. Like a star, Meline signed back without hesitation. For the first time, Olivia looked almost shy, the mask of practiced sarcasm slipping to reveal a teenager desperate to be seen. She signed with renewed energy. I paint, you know. That's when I stop being invisible. On canvas, I'm loud. Meline's curiosity sparked. Art? Yeah. Abstract mostly. Colors say what words can't. People think silence is empty, but it has texture. Sit. Wait. I try to show that. Meline smiled, feeling her chest tighten. This girl wasn't a porcelain doll locked in her father's empire. She was an artist bursting at the seams, locked in a world unwilling to read her language. Across the ballroom, Jackson's booming laugh carried. Olivia's gaze drifted to him again, her expression folding into something complicated, half pride, half ache. She signed slowly, deliberately now. He's good at talking. To everyone. Except me. Meline followed her eyes, then signed, Why not you? Olivia's hands paused midair. Her throat worked, but no sound came. Finally she signed, He doesn't know how. The words hung between them, heavier than the music, heavier than the crystal chandeliers overhead. A ripple of applause broke out near the stage as Jackson lifted his glass in toast, charming the crowd with the ease of a man used to controlling every room he entered. But not this one. Not the space carved in shadow between Meline and Olivia, where hands moved faster than words and silence thundered louder than applause. Olivia turned back to Meline, her eyes bright. You're the first person tonight who's actually talked to me. Meline signed back, fierce and certain, Then let's make it count. The gala orchestra swelled into a lively waltz as couples spun across the polished floor. Crystal glasses clinked, laughter burst from clusters of donors, and camera crews jockeyed for angles of Jackson Pierce, the man of the hour. But Meline's focus never left Olivia. The teenager's hands moved with quicksilver speed as she shared pieces of herself she rarely revealed. I'm in my senior year at Westridge Academy. Mainstreamed, but there's a deaf program. Still it's complicated. Meline signed back. Complicated how? Olivia hesitated, then shrugged. Hearing kids think I'm arrogant because I'm Pierce's daughter. Deaf kids think I'm privileged and don't understand their struggles. So, not much of a place for me. Her eyes dropped to the floor, shoulders tensing again. Then, with a flicker of defiance, she signed, At least I have art. Meline leaned in. Art? Olivia's face brightened with a rush of pride. I paint. Actually, I'm good at it. Abstracts mostly. Silence has shape, weight, color. I try to show that. My mom understood. That. He doesn't. Before Meline could reply, a ripple moved through the crowd. The donors parted as Jackson Pierce strode closer, tall and commanding, his assistant trailing him with a tablet clutched like a shield. A photographer hovered at his shoulder, already angling for shots. Olivia, Jackson said, his voice crisp, deliberate, as if volume could compensate for comprehension. His eyes never once met Meline's. We need you for photos. Olivia's entire body stiffened. She smoothed her dress, pulled her polite mask back on, and fell into step beside him without protest. Meline's chest tightened as she watched. Not once did Jackson sign a single word. Not once did he ask who Meline was or why his daughter suddenly looked alive after an evening of invisibility. As they moved toward the press lights, Olivia glanced back. Her hands moved quickly, hidden near her waist where only Meline could see. See what I mean? He doesn't even ask. Meline's throat burned. She had worked with dozens of deaf children, all longing for connection. But never had she seen someone so profoundly isolated while surrounded by everything money could buy. The cameras flashed as Jackson and Olivia posed together. He smiled, a practiced expression honed over decades of boardrooms and photo ops. Olivia smiled too, but hers was hollow, the light in her eyes extinguished the moment she left Meline's side. Meline whispered under her breath, as though her words could slip through the crowd and reach the girl who just confessed her loneliness. He doesn't see you. But I do. The flashbulbs popped again, trapping Olivia in her father's orbit. And in that moment, Meline Foster, freelance interpreter, felt something shift deep inside her. A stubborn determination that she hadn't expected, one that whispered she was already too involved. The ballroom air was heavy with perfume, laughter, and the relentless flash of cameras. But outside the French doors, the night was cool, sharp with the faint scent of pine drifting down from the Seattle hills. Meline slipped through the terrace doors, her heels clicking softly against the stone. She had spotted Olivia slipping away minutes earlier, her midnight blue dress dissolving into the shadows of the hotel garden. Sure enough, Olivia leaned against the balustrade, the city lights shimmering below her like scattered jewels. Her shoulders sagged, no longer braced for the scrutiny of flashing bulbs. Meline approached slowly, raising her hands as she signed, "Escaping?" Olivia turned, the relief on her face unmistakable. "Just breathing. Inside it's all noise, lips moving, people pretending I'm not there." Meline stood beside her, their silence companionable. Then Olivia's hands moved again, sharper this time. "You know what hurts most? He doesn't even try. My father. The great Jackson Pierce. He can convince a boardroom of strangers to give him billions but can't bother to learn a single word from me." Her fingers trembled, but her face remained steady, practiced. "After Mom died, he buried himself in work. To him I became a problem. Something to fix. Therapists, specialists, surgeries. Not one sign. Not one." Meline swallowed hard, anger tightening in her chest. "That's not your fault, Olivia." Olivia's gaze dropped. "Doesn't matter. To him it is." The terrace door creaked open behind them. Meline turned. Jackson Pierce stepped into the cool night air, his suit jacket catching the garden lights. His assistant lingered by the door, but a flick of his hand sent her back inside. He looked from Olivia to Meline, confusion flickering across his controlled expression. "Olivia," he said firmly, his lips easy to read, his voice precise. "It's time to go." Olivia's face closed down instantly, the polite mask sliding back into place. Her hands twitched, but she didn't sign. Something inside Meline snapped. She lifted her hands and spoke at the same time, every word voiced for Jackson and signed for Olivia. "Mr. Pierce. My name is Meline Foster. I'm an interpreter. And I've been speaking with your daughter tonight. She's extraordinary." Jackson's eyes narrowed. "Do you work for this event?" "Yes," Meline said evenly, still signing. "But right now, I'm just someone telling you the truth, that you're missing the best part of your daughter because you've never learned to listen to her language." The billionaire froze, caught off guard by the bluntness. For the first time all evening, his carefully constructed mask cracked. Beneath the steel, Meline glimpsed something raw, shame. Quickly buried again. "You've overstepped, Miss Foster," Jackson said coldly. "My relationship with my daughter is not your concern." Olivia's hands darted nervously. "Meline, stop. Please. He'll only get defensive." Meline shook her head, refusing to lower her hands. Her voice trembled but held steady. "With all due respect, Mr. Pierce, communication isn't private. It's necessary. And your daughter is standing right here, waiting for you to see her." Jackson's jaw clenched. His hand tightened on the balustrade, knuckles white. For a long moment, the only sound was the distant hum of traffic far below. The morning after the gala, gray Seattle rain streaked the windows of Meline's small apartment. She sat cross-legged on her futon, clutching her phone like a lifeline. Her agency coordinator's voicemail still echoed in her ears. "Call me back immediately. Jackson Pierce's office complained about your conduct last night." Meline's stomach nodded. She replayed every word from the terrace, the look on Jackson's face, the flicker of shame quickly replaced by ice. She had spoken too bluntly, too personally. Her rent was already 2 weeks overdue. Her student loan payment loomed. Losing clients meant losing the fragile balance she clung to. With trembling fingers she dialed back. The coordinator's voice was clipped. "Meline, explain yourself." Her throat tightened. "I didn't mean to be unprofessional. But his daughter, she was standing alone all night. You just confronted one of the most influential men in Seattle," her coordinator interrupted. "But apparently, instead of blacklisting you, he's requested you specifically." Meline blinked. "He what?" "You're to report to his estate this afternoon. Directly." "Meline, this is huge for the agency. Don't mess it up." The line clicked dead, leaving her staring at her phone in disbelief. By mid-afternoon, Meline's aging Honda crept through the wrought iron gates of the Pierce estate. The mansion loomed against the gray sky, a masterpiece of glass and stone overlooking Lake Washington. Perfectly manicured lawns sloped toward the water, the kind of wealth that seemed untouchable. A housekeeper led her through silent corridors adorned with oil paintings and sculptures that looked museum-worthy. Yet it was one painting that stopped Meline cold. Bold cobalt and gold strokes across canvas, raw and urgent. Olivia's hand was all over it. "She's talented," the housekeeper said softly before opening the door to Jackson Pierce's office. The man himself stood behind a massive desk of polished walnut, floor-to-ceiling windows framing the silver sheen of the lake beyond. He dismissed the housekeeper with a nod, then gestured to a chair. "Miss Foster," he said, his tone professional, clipped. "Thank you for coming." Meline sat, her palms damp. "Mr. Pierce, if this is about last night, I want to apologize. It wasn't my place." He lifted a hand, silencing her. "Perhaps it was exactly your place." Her brows furrowed. "I don't understand." Jackson leaned forward, his gaze sharp. "You were right. I failed my daughter. I've invested millions in hospitals, research, and specialists, yet I've ignored the one thing that mattered." Meline swallowed, caught off guard by the unexpected admission. "That's why I've asked you here today," he continued, his voice lower now, carrying something she hadn't heard before, vulnerability. "Not to interpret for Olivia, but to teach me." Meline blinked. "Teach you?" His eyes locked on hers. "American Sign Language. I should have learned years ago. I want to speak to my daughter without strangers in the room. I want to fix what I've broken." The rain battered the glass behind him, thunder rumbling across the lake. Jackson Pierce's study was a cathedral of power, dark wood paneling, shelves lined with first editions, and a view of Lake Washington framed like a painting. But today it felt more like a classroom. Meline sat across from him at a long oak table, a notebook open, her hands poised. Olivia's paintings hung quietly on the far wall, bold colors breaking the room's severity. Jackson rolled his shoulders, visibly uncomfortable. "All right. Where do we start?" Meline folded her hands together. "With the basics. The alphabet. Finger spelling." She demonstrated, moving deliberately, ABC. Her hands flowed like water. Jackson mimicked her, stiff, mechanical, his large fingers fumbling clumsily through each shape. He muttered. "B. C. No, wait." His fingers twisted wrong. Meline corrected gently, guiding his hand into place. "It's muscle memory. You'll get faster with practice." He scowled. "I don't like being bad at things." "Most adults don't," she replied with a half smile. "But your daughter doesn't need perfect. She needs effort." For a moment, silence stretched. Then Jackson tried again, slower this time. By the end of the alphabet, his movements were jerky but recognizable. "Good," Meline encouraged. "Now, something more important than letters." She raised her hand, signed carefully, "I'm proud of you." Jackson's brows knit. "What was that?" "Something every child needs to hear. Especially yours." He hesitated, then copied her, his movements halting, unsure. The phrase looked awkward in his powerful hands, but something in his eyes shifted as he repeated it. "Again," Meline urged. He tried once more. This time, his fingers trembled, but not from effort. His voice cracked low in his throat. "I haven't said that to her in years." Meline softened. "Then start now. With this." She showed him another, "I love you." Pinky, index, and thumb extended. Jackson's hand froze mid-motion. He stared at the sign as though it were a weight he wasn't ready to lift. He turned away, walking to the window where rain misted the glass. His reflection looked older there, haunted. Meline waited. Finally his voice came low and rough. "I was driving the night of the accident." Her chest tightened. "Black ice," he continued, still facing the glass. "A truck jackknifed it. Catherine died instantly. Olivia was in the back seat. When she woke up, her world was silent. And I," his hand clenched. "I couldn't bear to look at her without seeing everything I'd lost. Everything I'd failed to protect." Meline's throat thickened. "That wasn't your fault." He turned then, eyes sharp with unshed grief. "Tell that to my 7-year-old who screamed for nights she couldn't even hear. I tried to fix it with money, with specialists. Anything but learning to talk to her myself. Because if I tried and failed," his voice broke, "then I'd have lost her too." The room fell heavy, the silence louder than words. Meline spoke softly, firmly, "She doesn't need you to fix her. She needs you to try." Jackson stared at her, breathing ragged, hands half raised, as if caught between a language he didn't know and emotions he couldn't escape. The cafe near Westridge Academy buzzed with the chatter of students and the hiss of the espresso machine. Rain streaked the windows, blurring the city beyond into watercolor shades of gray and green. Meline sat at a small table, her hands wrapped around a warm mug. She spotted Olivia instantly, dark hair damp from drizzle, sketchbook clutched to her chest, eyes sharp yet wary. Olivia slid into the chair opposite her, setting the sketchbook on the table as though it were armor. Without hesitation, her hands began to move. "So, how's my father doing?" Meline smiled faintly. "Still terrible at fingerspelling. But improving." Olivia rolled her eyes, her fingers sharp with sarcasm. He approaches everything like a hostile takeover. Study, master, move on. Is that so bad? Meline signed back. If it means he's finally learning to talk to you? Olivia's smirk faltered. I'll believe it when I see it. But beneath the skepticism, Meline caught it, a flicker of hope she couldn't quite hide. They sipped their drinks in silence for a moment, the comfortable kind. Then Olivia pushed her sketchbook across the table. The page revealed a swirling mess of charcoal strokes, chaotic, raw, almost violent. Next to it, a second drawing showed hands forming the sign for freedom. Meline's breath caught. These are yours. Olivia's hands flashed with sudden energy. Art is the only place I'm not invisible. The only place I can scream without sound. After the accident, I draw for hours, dark, messy things. Therapists said it was trauma. But for me it was language. My first language. She flipped the page to a painting of a faceless man in a business suit standing over a child drawn in shadow. Her eyes flicked up, daring Meline to comment. Meline signed carefully. That's him. Olivia didn't flinch. He sent me to boarding schools for the deaf after Mom died. Said it was for the best. But really he just couldn't stand to look at me. Every parent weekend he came with interpreters and fake smiles. Then he left again. 9 years like that. By the time I came home he wasn't my dad anymore. He was a polite stranger. Meline's heart ached. That must have been unbearable. Olivia's fingers slowed, deliberate. You asked me why I don't have friends? It's because I don't trust people to stay. Everyone leaves eventually. Even fathers. The cafe noise seemed to dim around them, the weight of her confession filling the space between the clatter of cups. Meline reached across the table, her own hands steady. I can't promise the future, Olivia. But I see you. And I'm not leaving right now. For a moment, the girl's bravado cracked, her eyes glistening before she blinked the tears back. She flipped to another sketch, an abstract canvas exploding with color. Senior showcase. Next Friday. You should come. Meline signed with a soft smile. I wouldn't miss it. The gallery at Westridge Academy shimmered with polished floors, whitewashed walls, and the hum of anticipation. Parents, donors, and teachers drifted from easel to easel, murmuring politely about student works. But at the center wall, a collection commanded the room, Olivia Pierce's. Meline slipped in early, weaving through the crowd until she found her. Olivia stood stiff in her midnight blue blazer, clutching her hands together. Her eyes darted nervously as people studied her canvases without speaking to her. Meline approached, signing, You okay? Olivia exhaled shakily. Feels like standing naked in public. But these are me. Finally. Meline turned to the paintings. They were breathtaking, violent swirls of black and crimson giving way to gold and cobalt, chaos bleeding into fragile hope. The centerpiece towered above the rest, a canvas split in two. One side darkness, jagged with hidden words, noise, crash, silence. The other side light where painted hands formed signs, freedom, love, voice. The title card read simply, After Silence. Meline's throat tightened. Olivia, this is extraordinary. Before Olivia could respond, a ripple coursed through the gallery. Jackson Pierce had arrived. Tailored suit, polished shoes, presence filling the space like thunder. The headmaster hurried to him, eager to guide him toward donors and plaques. But Jackson's gaze swept the room, and locked on his daughter's display. Olivia stiffened. Here comes the benefactor. But something unexpected happened. Instead of being steered away, Jackson brushed past the headmaster, walked directly to his daughter's work and stopped. He stared at the canvases, eyes widening, his mask slipping as if he were seeing Olivia for the first time. The crowd hushed as he raised his hands. Slowly, deliberately, halting but clear, he signed. These are beautiful. I'm proud of you. Gasps rippled among the onlookers. Olivia froze, her breath caught. Her fingers trembled, then responded, small and uncertain. Thank you. It was only 2 phrases. Basic. Broken. But it was more than they had shared in years. The gallery seemed to hold its breath. Meline's chest ached, witnessing the fragile bridge forming. For the first time, Jackson Pierce had spoken to his daughter in her language. Applause broke out politely from nearby guests, mistaking the intimate exchange for a staged performance. But Olivia's eyes glistened, her lips parting in disbelief. For a heartbeat, hope bloomed. Then the headmaster stepped forward, microphone in hand. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us. Tonight, we have the honor of announcing the recipient of the Catherine Pierce Memorial Scholarship. Meline saw Olivia's head jerk, confusion flashing. A full year of study at the Paris Institute of Fine Arts, the headmaster continued grandly. Established by Mr. Jackson Pierce himself. And this year's recipient, Miss Olivia Pierce. The gallery erupted in applause. Cameras clicked. Teachers beamed. But Olivia's face fell. Not pride. Not joy. Her fury. She turned, eyes blazing, and fled the gallery. The polished halls of Westridge Academy echoed with applause from the gallery, but in a dim classroom down the corridor, silence pressed thick and heavy. Olivia paced in her blazer, fingers flying in furious, jagged signs that blurred with speed. Her face flushed, eyes blazing with betrayal. Meline stood near the door, heart pounding, translating aloud for Jackson Pierce, who looked utterly lost. She sang, "How could you? How dare you use Mom's name, make decisions about my future without even asking me?" Jackson's jaw clenched. The scholarship is an opportunity. Paris is the finest. Olivia slammed her palm against the desk, her hands slicing the air. "I don't want Paris. I've planned for Harvard my whole life. You just decided. Again." Meline's voice cracked as she gave the translation. Jackson stepped forward, his voice rising. "I thought you'd be pleased. This was meant to honor your mother." Olivia's hands trembled, her chest heaving. "Honor? By controlling me? By sending me away again like you did when she died?" The words hit like a slap. Jackson froze, his polished composure fracturing. "Those schools, those programs, were to give you the best education possible." Olivia's signs slashed, furious. "No. They were to get rid of me. To hide me. Because you couldn't stand to look at me." Meline's throat tightened as she translated. Jackson's voice cracked for the first time. "That's not true. Isn't it?" Olivia signed, tears spilling now, her movements jerky, raw. "You sent me away for 9 years, Dad. 9 years. I was 7. Mom was dead. And you abandoned me too." Jackson's hands flexed at his sides, the weight of her words pressing down on him like iron. His eyes glistened, but his voice fought to stay even. "I was trying to protect you. To give you what I couldn't." Olivia's hands slowed, trembling. "What couldn't you give me? Understanding? Well, a father who stayed." The words ripped through the air, and this time Jackson's mask shattered. He pressed his palms to the desk, leaning forward, voice raw. "I couldn't understand your silence. Every time you tried to speak and I couldn't follow, I felt like I was losing you all over again. I buried myself in work because I didn't know how to be enough for you." Olivia shook her head violently, her hands darting, desperate. "You didn't have to be enough. You just had to be there." Her shoulders shook, tears streaking down her face. She stared at him, breath ragged, waiting for the man who commanded empires to finally answer, not as a billionaire, but as a father. Jackson swallowed hard. His lips parted. His hands trembled, hovering uncertainly in the air. The classroom's fluorescent lights buzzed faintly, a harsh counterpoint to the storm brewing between father and daughter. Olivia stood trembling, tears streaking her face, her hands still half raised. Jackson remained rigid at the desk, his throat working, his eyes dark with grief. Meline stood between them, translating the silence itself, her own heart hammering. Finally, Jackson inhaled shakily. His hands rose, clumsy, hesitant, stiff. "I was wrong." The signs were awkward but clear. Olivia's eyes widened. He pressed on, voice low, broken. "I thought I was protecting you. But I was protecting myself. From guilt. From failure. From looking at you and seeing Catherine's face, knowing she was gone because I couldn't stop it." Meline's breath caught as she voiced his confession. Olivia's lips parted, her tears falling freely now. Her hands shaped trembling signs. "You thought you lost me. But I lost you." Jackson's composure cracked. He shook his head violently. "No. I never stopped loving you. I just didn't know how to show it." He raised his hands again, haltingly mimicking the signs Meline had taught him days before. Fingers awkward, movements shaky. "I'm proud of you. I love you." Olivia froze. Her body stiffened as though the floor had dropped away beneath her. Her hands hovered midair, trembling, not trusting. For years she had wanted those words. Needed them. But now, seeing them at last, she felt torn open. "Don't say it if you don't mean it." Jackson's voice broke. "I mean it. God, Olivia, I mean it. More than anything. But I know I don't deserve for you to believe me." The silence pressed hard. Meline felt the air thicken, every heartbeat like a drum. Olivia wiped her face roughly, anger and grief battling in her eyes. She signed slower now, softer, as though exhausted. "All I ever wanted wasn't Paris. Or Harvard. Or your money. I just wanted my father back. Jackson's chest heaved. He stepped toward her, cautiously, like a man approaching a fragile glass bridge. Then let me try. Not as Jackson Pierce, billionaire. Not as the man who failed you. Just as Dad. Her lips trembled. Her hands formed a hesitant reply. I don't know if I can trust you not to disappear again. Jackson's face folded with pain. He nodded slowly. Then let me earn it. Day by day. Word by word. Sign by sign. The silence that followed wasn't empty anymore. It was tentative, fragile, but alive, like a wound finally exposed to healing air. Meline swallowed hard, her chest tight, knowing she had witnessed the first crack in the wall that had divided them for a decade. But as Olivia stared at her father with eyes filled with both longing and doubt, one thought burned clear in her trembling hands. Don't fail me again. The auditorium swelled with proud chatter, the air buzzing with the scent of flowers and fresh-pressed robes. Blue and gold banners draped the walls of Westridge Academy, shimmering beneath the stage lights. Parents craned for photos, applause erupted at every name called, and the orchestra played hopeful notes that rang through the hall. In the front row, Jackson Pierce sat rigid, his suit immaculate but his hands restless in his lap. He wasn't scanning business emails or talking to donors. He was focused, eyes locked on the stage. For once, the billionaire was only a father. Meline, seated a few rows back, watched him closely. She could see the tension in his shoulders, the quiet storm behind his eyes. He looked like a man preparing for battle, against his own silence. When Olivia's name was announced, the applause thundered. She walked across the stage in her cap and gown, chin lifted, every step steady. Her midnight blue stole shimmered under the lights. She paused at the podium, hands gripping the sides, eyes sweeping over the sea of faces. Then she began to sign. The interpreter at her side gave voice to her words, but the real power was in her hands, fluid, fierce, alive. In a world that values sound above all else, Olivia signed, her hands slicing the air with precision, I have lived in silence. But silence is not empty. It is full, of weight, of texture, of voices waiting to be seen. The audience leaned forward, captivated. She continued, her hands moving with fiery grace. I used to believe silence meant invisibility, that I was unseen, unheard, forgotten. But I learned that the most important conversations don't need sound. They need presence. They need courage. Meline's throat tightened as she translated in her head, even as the official interpreter spoke aloud. Olivia's eyes swept the crowd, and stopped on her father. Her hands slowed, deliberate. My journey from silence to expression wouldn't have been possible without two people. My mother, who taught me that music exists even for those who cannot hear it. And my father, who finally chose to listen in a language that is not his own. Gasps rippled. Jackson's jaw clenched, emotion tightening his face as the audience turned toward him. Olivia signed the final words, her eyes locked on his. Love doesn't always need sound to be understood. The hall erupted in applause, cheers echoing like thunder. Cameras flashed, capturing the deaf girl who commanded the stage without a single spoken word. Jackson rose slowly, his eyes never leaving his daughter. His hands shook as he lifted them, awkward but determined. In front of hundreds he signed. I love you. Olivia froze, the tears spilling fast now. She lifted her trembling hands, responding. Then don't let silence take you again. The crowd roared, unaware of the fragile, seismic shift happening in the front row, a father and daughter bridging a decade of silence before the world. 6 months later, sunlight spilled across the manicured lawns of the Pierce estate. The lake shimmered beyond the glass walls of the newly renovated East Wing, where canvases leaned against fresh white walls and the smell of oil paint lingered in the air. Olivia stood in the middle of her new studio, sleeves rolled up, streaks of cobalt across her hands. The room pulsed with color, unfinished canvases alive with movement, brushes waiting in jars like soldiers at attention. Jackson stood in the doorway, suit jacket off, his tie loosened. He looked oddly out of place amid the mess, but his eyes glowed with quiet pride. Slowly, deliberately, his hands shaped the words. I see you. Olivia smiled softly, her own fingers answering. Finally. Meline entered behind him, invited not as a guest but as family now. She paused, taking in the studio, her heart swelling at the sight of Olivia in her element, an artist with space to breathe, to be loud in her silence. Jackson turned to Meline, his voice steady but his hands moving too, his signs far more fluid than before. We wanted you to see it first. Olivia wiped her hands on a cloth and came to stand beside her father, grinning as she signed, It's not just the studio. Tell her. Jackson nodded. We've established a foundation. The Catherine Pierce Foundation for Deaf Education and the Arts. We'll fund programs, scholarships, art therapy initiatives. And every staff member, no exceptions, will learn ASL. Meline's breath caught. That's incredible. Olivia signed fiercely, her eyes bright. This is Dad's way of saying sorry, but also of saying he's staying. For me. For others like me. Jackson gave a small, humbled smile. It's more than that. It's about never letting silence be an excuse again. He looked at Meline, his expression open, vulnerable. We'd like you to be our program director. If you're willing. Meline blinked, overwhelmed. Me? Olivia stepped closer, her hands signing with certainty. Who else? You're the one who saw me when no one else did. You're the reason he learned to sign. You showed us that communication isn't about sound, it's about seeing each other. The weight of their gratitude pressed warm against Meline's chest. She swallowed hard, her eyes stinging. I'd be honored. Olivia's grin spread wide. She pulled Meline into a sudden, fierce hug, paint smudging Meline's sleeve. Jackson hesitated, then joined, awkwardly at first, before his arms folded around them both. For the first time in years, the Pierce family wasn't fractured by silence. It was whole. The three stood there in the messy, brilliant studio, the light catching on Olivia's paintings, as though Catherine herself had brushed the gold into the canvas. And for the first time, Meline believed that silence had finally become what Olivia always said it was. Not empty, but full. Full of healing, of love, of voices seen if not heard.